This is Gemara Horayos, Daf Dalid, and as we pick it up from the Mishnah on Gimel Amid Beis, on the second wide line of the learning has been dedicated as an incredible Schos Elias Neshama, Faster Reyzel Basar Meir B'Siyata Dishmaya. The incredible Kayach HaTorah, Kayach of a Daf Gemara, not the easiest Daf Gemara, many words in every Daf, difficult concepts in every Daf, should bring an incredible Aliyas Teshama of Reyzel Basar Meir. Reyzel Basar Meir. So here we go. We're at a Mishnah. We continue learning. Basically, we're within the halachas of the Parhalim Davar Shel Tzibur. Says the Mishnah, Hayrai Bezdin. So back to the Horay, the Horayos, the Psak halacha of Bezdin, a Psak that Bezdin said something was mutter. And again, the basic parameters being something that the Avera general be kares, and Roiv Klal Yisrael follow the Psak, v'yadu sheta'u v'chazru. And afterwards, Bezdin realizes they made a mistake, and they were a chayzer. Bein sheviu kaparasan, says the Mishnah, whether they brought to the Parhalim Davar Shel Tzibur, ben sheloiviu kaparasan, whether they didn't. So again, Bezdin basket something was mutter. Bezdin subsequently realized they messed up. Says the Mishnah, whether they actually followed through and brought the Parhalim Davar Shel Tzibur or not, what happens if a singular individual, now whether he knows the story or not, we're going to talk about. But says the Mishnah, a singular individual goes and still does whatever that psak of Bezdin was. Rabbi Shimon Paiter, Rav Eliezer Omer, Safik. Shimon says there's no carbon for that singular person, and Rav Eliezer says it is a Safik. Now here the word Safik is a little bit interesting, as the Mishnah itself says, what do you mean Safik is? Oh, Safik. Yoshav loy b'toich beisoich chayiv hol dina seyam potter. So here the word Safik doesn't really mean in doubt, it means it depends. That if the person was home, and therefore he should have known that Bezdin was retracted, the original psak, then chayiv, then indeed he has to bring a carbon. If not, he's going to be potter. Amar Rabbi Akiva, commenting on this day, Maidani bazashu karev lepotter min achayva, says Rabbi Akiva, I admit, I hold, and I can see that a person is more potter than chayiv. Amar le ben Azai, maishna zem and ayeshev bebeisei. Says ben Azai, don't understand. Why is this person, the fact that he traveled, why is he different than if he stayed at home? He sits at home, it's possible he could have heard what happened. Just because he traveled, it's not possible. Excuse me. And then Rabbi Akiva responds, no, I'll tell you the chalik. If you're home, you hear. If you're not home, you don't hear. Continues the Mishnah articulating different examples of cases of psak bezdin that would result in the Parhalim Davar Shel Tzibur. Hayrai bezdin lakres kol hagof bezdin baskin to uproot an entire gof, an entire segment of halacha. Amru, for example, they said a nida b'atayra in Shabbos b'atayra and v'tzchav b'atayra. If Bezdin said any of those, hareilu p'turim, and then what happens? Someone does such. There's no din of Parhalim Davar Shel Tzibur. But Hayr Levatel makes us, or Lekayim makes us, if Bezdin baskind to get rid of part of the mitzvah, a part of halacha, then Hayr Lechayavim. What does that mean, Ketzad? Amru, if the Bezdin said Yish Nidu B'Tayra, but they said one aspect, one case is not. Avalabal Shemeres Yom Keneged Yom, she's waiting for the next day, Potter. Or Yish Shabbos B'Tayra, Avon Tishel, which is a Rabbin Potter. Or Yishav Tzchav B'Tayra, Avon Mishtacha Potter. In these cases in which the psak was not totally negating, but rather a particular halacha, then Arelu Chayavim Shenemar, because the Mekar for the Parhalim Davar Shel Tzibur, says the Mishnah, is the pasuk that Shnei and Elam Davar, and the Davar was in Elam was concealed, and the Mishnah explains Davar v'loi kol hagof, and from here we teach up, and it means a Davar part of the halacha was Nelam, and not kol hagof, not the entire area of halacha. So two parts of the Mishnah. First part of the Mishnah dealing with Shita of Rav Shimon, and then the second part of the examples. Says the Gemara regarding part A, Rav Yudam my time with Rav Shimon. What is the reason for Rav Shimon that when the singular person continues to follow the psak halacha even after Bezin was chayiv there? Said Rav Shimon, there's a patur. It was done with the permission, literally, of Bezin. He thought it was allowed. Once the psak went out, because the purpose of the psak is being shegula mesid, and this person thought it was allowed, and therefore it says Rav Shimon, there will still be a patur. Meisvei asked the Gemara, the Brisa says, this carbon, the carbon of the Param Davar Shel Tzibor, or Usiri Avodah Chavim, or the case they bring a seer for worshiping Avodah Zara. Says the Brisa, originally they collect from the people to pay for the carbon. No, they don't collect it. It goes from the Beis Hamikdash communal funds. So I asked the Gemara, if they're going to collect, then clearly every person should have known that Bezin was chayzer, that they're bringing the carbon for the mistake they made. Says the Gemara. So now Amai, when they gavilu, once they collect, you should have known. So ask the Gemara, how could this whole case of Rav Shimon happen in the first place? He should have known. Explains the Gemara, they didn't know exactly why. He wasn't in town at that moment. Rav Kidach Sabri, like the other Tani Ibcha, they learned the exact opposite, switching on the sheet of Rav Shimon and Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda, how they collect from the people of Shimon, I know, Mitchumas Talishka, hey, and by him, 3 different ways of explaining Shitas Rav Shimon. Continues the Gemara Tani. Rabbi Meir Mechayev, Rabbi Shimon Paiter, Rav Elazar Safek, Mishum Silchas Amr Talif. So 4 different opinions as to what happens in our case of the Yachid that did it, what Bezdin originally paskind was allowed. Amar Rav Yechanan, the last 2 opinions, Rav Elazar says Safek, Subcha says Tali. What does that mean? Says Rav Yechanan Hashem Tali, it could be now whether you bring a carbon according to Rav Elazar, yes, according to Sumches, no. Amar Rav Zira, mashal to Rav Elazar l'mad every time. But what is a mashal? What is a comparison to the case of Rav Elazar that says the Safek is never going to bring an Hashem Tali? L'adam shachal Safek chalei Safek shuman. He eats something he's not sure if it's kosher or not. V'loiv in the line, he finds out about it. What's the halacha? Shemevi asham, he's going to bring the asham. V'loiv mi ba yilaman damar siber ma'isi. So now as we turn over to Dalam and Aleph, the Gemara explains that this is pashit according to the opinion that says that Tzibur Ma'isi, that who pays for the carbon, it comes from the Tzibur. Why? Since everyone finds out that Bezdin was chayzer, therefore the Tzibur has to pay. Bezdin may be in. Then we fault him. Why? Because he should have asked. Says the Gemara, that sheet is Rav Elazar. What about Somches? Mashal de Somches, 5 lines down. How could he explain Somches? Someone that brings a carbon during twilight. Now, twilight we know is in a unique time period, which is a suffix be'etzim. It's an inherent suffix that we are not sure. Some video on this chaperloi, some this chaperloi. Shein maybe Ashab Tali or Simchas hold. In such a case, you don't bring an Ashab Tali. V'loiv mi bar l'man der bezin mevi'in v'loiv harsam milsa afilu man Amar Sibur mevi'in v'varsam milsa v'yarmin alei ta'acha b'savi yom savi mishechat sheikha isha Allah ashkich inish to mishayli. What's going to help to ask? Because no one is to know what the story is by Savi ben Hashmash. And similarly, we don't fault the person that he should have asked. Continues the Gemara, Amar Loi ben Azai. We're at the 2 dots, 15 lines down. Amar Loi ben Azai, Ma'ishna. Menayoshe ben Azai asked, how's this different than someone sitting at home? And Rav Akiva responded, the difference is whether he should have found out about it or not. Says the Gemara, Shabra, Kamerli, Rav Akiva, ben Azai. It's a good taino. Amar Rava, Hechslik Badarech, Hikimenayu explains Rava. The machlekes is going to be and he set out on the road, but he's still within the city. Leben Asa, you're going to be chayiv. Tababese, it's called being home. Kiva Potter, because you went on the road. So now we go to part 2 of the Mishnah, which was differentiating between different ways that Bezdin uprooted, either it's a full halacha or part of halacha. The part of halacha brings the param davar shel tzibur. Tanu Rabbana, where do we learn this from? In Elam Davar, as the Mishnah explained, V'lo she'ekar ha-mitzvah kula. Keitzad, Roini the Baterin, Shabbos Baterin, V'zachavim Bateira, Yachal Chayav, and you think there is a problem Davar. Tam Elohim, Rav in Elam Davar, Lo shetali mitzvah kula. Harei lu Peturin. Aval Amru Yeshni the Bateira. Aval Abosh Rez Yom Kinegid Yom Bater. There is a need though, they discard of one halacha, or Yishavas Ba'atayr, Aval Amatir just Yachal just Ravim Bater, or Yidras Chavim Ba'atayr, Aval Mishachim Bater, Yachal Bater, and Tamalev and Elam Davar, V'loi Kol Agav Mamish explaining the din, just like the Mishnah said. So now says the Gemara, 15 lines of the wide lines. First one line is Amar. Let's delve a little bit deeper into this halacha. Amar. So what did the Bryce just say? You would think that he's Potter, but says, I don't understand. Vikia makes us Ubitel, makes us Peturin. Ubakira is called Agov Peturin. If what's the Havamina that both cases you'd be Potter? So then when would there ever be a case of a Paral Davar Shal Tzibur? Says the Gemara Tani Hachika Kasha. This is the Kasha. Ema davar kula milsa masha. Maybe the word davar means everything, and that's when there would be the paral davar. Tamler v'nelam davar my mashma amrula karbe v'nela mi davar, but not negating the entire halacha. Chizki Amar Sekim Shad Amar Kra says the Torah of Asu Achas we call mitzvahs. Mikol mitzvahs v'loi kol mitzvahs. Mitzvahs tarti mashma, and that's what we see. Excuse me, it says more mitzvahs is tarti mashma. We're not going to use mitzvahs ksiv. It says mitzvahs without the extra vav, and therefore it's not in the plural. Rav Ashi Amar Thirb Shayol Davar Davar Mizakin Mamre Siv Achab Mizakin Mamre Ki Apli Mimcha Davar V'Lo Yisasser Davar Davar Sheki L'Chaim Min Small Mam. So the Gemara darshes Ma Memre Min Adavar V'Lo Yikol Davar, just like Mizakin Mamre is by part. V'Lo Avayra Davar V'Lo Yikol Agof, and therefore it says the Gemara 3 different ways of learning that the Psukim are teaching us. They're only going to have a case of Paral Davar Shal Tzibur if part of a halacha was negated. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel comes along arguing on the din that we just brought forth from the Mishnah. Says Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Ein bezin chayavim ad sheyoyrei bedavar she'ein atztukim maidim bay. That when does the Paral Davar Shal Tzibur come? Not stam if you uproot part of halacha. No! If you get rid of something, the Sedukim do not agree. Explicit pasuk in the Torah, then there's no Paral Davar, then it's Petura my time. Zel Kari Ravu, because you should have gone learned and you would have known what the appropriate halacha is. Tanami learned in the Mishnah. Yeshni devar terva lo I'm getting yom potter about my shemer I'm gonna get yom. Ask the Gemara on the first line. I don't understand why shemer yom keneged yom haksiva. That's explicit in the Torah of V'safra law. Melamish is veras echad leechad. Says the Gemara, so even the Tzedukim would be maskim. So according to Avidam or Shmuel, it has to be something that the Tzedukim would not be maskim to. How would you explain this example of our Mishnah? Explains the Gemara, Damri ha'ara sharia. It's not talking about a real full-fledged tashma. It's about that they said ha'ara, just an insertion, a little bit of the aver, that is what is permitted. But they're masking Gomer Bia who the Aser. Says Hanami Kseves Mekaira Ha'ara. It's also learned off in the pasuk. The Amri Kedarka Sir Shlo Kedarka Shar. You're right. So you know what the Halach Lebezin said was that you're allowed to have Bia Shaloi Kedarka before the woman is fully tar. Says the Gemara in Mishkavei Isha. It says Mishkavei Isha, which we clearly learn out. It means the normal Mishkavei Isha, which of course is Kedarka. Says the Gemara, the Amri, you know what the psak was? Kedarka is Aser. Afilu ha'ara b'shaloi kedarka. excuse me, Damri Kedarka Savilu Hara. B'shaloi Kedarka, but they said if you're having Bia Shaloi Kedarka, then you know what's Aser? Only Gemar Biudas. Avla Hara Sharia. Ha'ara on Bia Shaloi Kedarka. That was the psak that Bezdin gave, partially uprooting the halacha. Says Mariach, I feel need nami. But if this is case, then we consider the same thing by nida. There should be a problem. Davar shel tzibur. Eledum kedarko da'amri ha'ara bi'isha davahu dechsev. But it's dafka the ha'ara that they permitted was bi'isha. But davahu considered only a woman that's while she's having her period, not a shemeres yaim. Keneged yoim. Biba yisema second daris damri zava loy havya ella biyamam. They said a zava only is if it happens by the daytime. They'll say kol yemei zayva. Kol yemei zayva. So two different ways of learning what the incorrect psak that could fit even the Rav Yehuda or Shmuel. It said it has to be something that the Tzedukim would not be maskim to. Says the Gemara. Now we learned in the Mishnah. Again, a kasha on Rav Yehuda or Shmuel that said it's totally in psak that Tzedukim would not agree. Yesh Shabbos v'atayir avlam v'rishus l'rishus pater. V'may oitza kesiva carrying set in the Torah l'sivu masa mibatechem. Damris they said oitza udaser achnasa mater. V'bayisema achnasa mean bringing in, as we remember from the first Mishnah on Shabbos. V'bayisema Dami oitza udaser moishet v'zayrik is shari. Tanan, the third example in our Mishnah, 3 lines at the bottom. That they said, they said it's only Sharia. That was the psak that they gave, but bowing in an unnatural manner, that's going to be that which is going to be motor. This may pashi reglayim. Only a full-fledged ishtachavaya, which is fully prostration, the hands and the legs, but not without that. Says the Gemara, now that we explained each of the 3 examples in the Mishnah, thereby allowing it to fit even the shita of Rav Yehuda or Shmuel, comes the Gemara asking in more cases whether we'll fit the parameters of the requirement of Paralam Davar Shel Tzibur. The top line of Beis and Beis. Boy, Rav Yosef, Ein Charisha b'Shabbos. They said there's no din of plowing on Shabbos Mahu. Do we say even the Kamay de Bekulim Milsa? Do we say since they agree in general about malachais? B'Vita mixes can't mix his time. It's called being mevatel, part of a mitzvah. Dama came with the Ka'akrina lay lecharisha, the entity, the malach of charisha. They're uprooted. Call akira kikira stuff dummy. So how do we view getting rid of charishas? Tashma proves the Gemara 5 lines down. Yesh need about Torah avla shemeres yem getting on potter v'maya kirina ha'akrayon. But they're getting rid of the whole halachic pretense of shemeres yem getting yom. Says the Gemara kol iker. Tzal l'charav Yosef shemeres yem de kamridan. What does it mean? Kedeh shani none, says the Gemara. But ask the Gemara if that is true. Tashema yishavas v'atayra. Avlam yisham shliach l'sham potter v'maya keren l'tzar kol eker. Asanami kiddush aninan. As we just explained a moment ago, that they got rid of one halacha of all the halachas. Tashema yishavas v'atayra avlam yisham potter v'maya keren l'sham kol eker. Amri yisham v'nami kiddush aninan. So we deflect all challenges. Bai Rav Zera asks the Gemara Nachai Kasha. Ein Shabbos v'Shvius. Now they ruled, they passed. There's no get Isra of working the land of Shabbos of Shemitah. Now, b'maitau, what's the mistake? B'hadein kara with the following pasuk that says v'chashav katzet tishva. He's anti charisha Shabbos. Sounds like charisha like a Shabbos. Mi amrinan. So the kasha is: do we say since all the other weeks of the 7 years, they said it is us. So how do we view this? Is this called the complete or brutal or not? Amar Ravina, proves Ravina Tashema. Navi shen is avlako davar min divrei Torah. Chayiv levatam Chayim mixes or Shimon Amir Potter versus Chavim. Avilo Amar Ayoyim Avdul Machar Bala Chayiv Shmamina. What do we see? Ein Shavs and Shias give it the mixes. The can't mixes dummy, just like we see by the case of the Nevuah. Shmamina says the Gemara that is indeed a good raya. And we have another Mishnah about 15 lines in the Y line. Says the Mishnah more halachas aparal and davar shel tzibar hayrei bezdin. V'yadu achmed sheton, someone knows he made a mistake. V'amr lem tell you not to made a mistake. Or shlei mufla shel bezdin. Or the greatest, the most chashav one of the bezdin was not sham, was not there. Oy shayachon me'em ger, oy mamzer and isin oy zakin. Shaloi ro lebanim. That someone sitting on the bezdin is not rayu to have children, then Areza Potter, there's no din of a par helam davar shel tzibur. Why? Shenemar kan ha'ida v'nemar la'alon ha'ida ma'ida mura la'alon is kulan ru'uyin la'ira. It's only going to be the chiyuv if they're all able to baskin av'ida mura kan sheikulan ru'uyin la'ira. In all these cases, they're all rayu la'ira. Therefore, there'll be no par helam davar shel tzibur. Says the Gemara, the greatest one of the best was not there. Minalon. Says the Gemara, we know this, that in such a scenario, there's no par helam davar shel tzibur. Amar Rav Sheish Lechanan very shmal v'neimam ru'ay Rabbi Davar shel tzedukim maidim by pturim. Why? Neishai l'lam v'leilamdu. La'ya mofla shel bezin sham nami pturim. Why? Neishai lahem lo mai v'leilamdu. The same reason that the greatest one of the bezin is not there, they're going to be potter. Why? Because there was what to learn, but they did not. Never sham eidam never tani dachu kulam ru'yin la'ira v'hasa minolan. Says the Gemara, where do we know that it's not the case? Amar Rav Chisda Amar Kravis Yatsu Sham Imecha Yatsu Sham Imach. Imach is b'daimim lach, has to be similar to Moshe Rabbeinu, someone who does not have any pagam in the mishpacha. Ve'ema Imach l'shchina l'amar Nachari Yitzchak Amar Kra Nasu Itach b'daimim lach. Teach you to be similar to you, that there can't be any issues with their yichos. Pick it up from the Mishnah B'siyata Dishmaya.